there's a need that has to be filled by someone. And if your client already has the trust in you from you proving that you will deliver, so then it just comes down to figuring out how to deliver.
Hey, Brian, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Most certainly. Well, Brian, every entrepreneur has an interesting story of how they overcome obstacles to become an entrepreneur. I was looking at your LinkedIn. I saw that you have gone to college, both undergrad and master's degree. You've gotten in political science. And now then you went on to start multiple companies, and now you run a technology firm. So clearly, I don't understand how you went from political science to technology. That's probably an interesting story to tell. But you also have a big heart for the inner city families and students and helping them also get out of poverty and giving them a new start to life. So can you share with our audience a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and some of the passion projects that you have going on?
Absolutely. One thing I want to rewind back on, though, is you said I had my bachelor's and master's. I have actually neither one of those. I come from a very, very educated family, but I am probably the least educated in my family. One of my sisters is a professor, one is an attorney. My brother is in finance. My mom's one of 10, and they were all degreed and upper degrees. I am the only one in my family that did not get a degree. So I want to clear that up. I left early, but I've been blessed to be a weird kind of guy. So I left college with a semester left. I used to do music. I was a singer. That was my first passion. But what you're talking about now is when I got to LA where I live now, the goal has always been helping people. My mother was very community focused, very community based. Anyone who would ever meet my mom in South Bend, Indiana, where I grew up, would tell you, yeah, Carolyn Murdock, like everybody loves her because she's always bringing people together. What I see and what I've seen over the years is that people don't have a purpose in our communities. And when I say our communities, the lower underclass or underserved communities, I would say. A lot of people say Black, but where we grew up, it was Black people, there were Mexican people, there were white people. So it's people who have lower means. And so when you don't have a purpose is when you kind of struggle. I own a technology company now because, as I said, I'm a nerd. As I was at Purdue, I paid for my schooling at Circuit City. I worked at Circuit City. And we talked earlier off camera. I worked at the Circuit City in Morton Grove, worked at the one in Niles. I don't know if it's still there. But yeah, so that was...
It's all closed. Yeah, they're all. I think there are two locations, but they're all closed
there you
now.
go. Yeah, they went out of business a few years ago. But that was my start. But then really understanding how to bring people together, how to communicate, and how to teach, how to show people that their current state does not dictate their future state. So those are the things. When we talk about the training program that we have, it's in sales, marketing, and technology. So I started off when I got recruited into a company here in LA in telecom. So we were an Avaya business partner. For those who don't know Avaya, because sadly Avaya lost faith in themselves, they used to be the number one telephone system in the United States, probably in the world. Before it was Avaya, it was Lucent Technologies. Before Lucent Technologies, it was AT&T. So I got recruited with them, started selling phone systems, understanding the technology of phone systems, eventually left the company that I was with because I saw opportunities outside of phones. And so we started doing what's called managed services. So managing networks. So Cisco routers is what we did then, Aruba switches, and managing all of that infrastructure from their customers. If you deliver, and if you're a great problem solver, a good problem solver, because most people, they just want to sell things. But if you are a problem solver, your customer is going to come to you with other things. And so our customers would come to us and say, hey, can you help us with security cameras? Do you guys know anyone? And so we figured that piece out and grew the business into that as well. So we do security cameras, AI with those security cameras. We manage networks. We still do the telecom piece, not as much Avaya anymore. We do it with hosted solutions. And then we also do internet. So we provide internet to clients for temporary. We provide internet for large events. So that is the
Hmm.
business that I'm in.
Yeah. So that's kind of crazy. So you dropped out of college, went on, worked at Circuit City, then got recruited to go to California, work for a company, and then you learned the business and you expanded. And how did you start this current business that you run, this technology
Exactly.
firm?
So the way that it was started was just based upon customer needs. So
I
I
see.
was
Okay.
working for that Avaya business partner,
Hmm.
and customers would ask me, "Hey, can you do this?" And I'd go to my boss at the time, "Hey, well, they want us
Hmm.
to install security cameras," and my bosses would be like, "Brian, we need you to focus. We sell phones, just sell phones." And I was like, "That feels weird because like they're not asking, can we bid it out? They're asking, can we do it for them?"
Hmm.
So essentially, they just want to buy from us. So why don't we just learn how to do it?
Hmm.
It doesn't seem like it's that hard. And so I went along with what my bosses were saying initially until one of my best friends, he worked for Brookfield Properties at the time. He was like, "Listen, I've got a huge client, the GSA, and they want to do this deal in one of our buildings." He's like, "I want to give it to you, but they don't want phones." And so I called
Hmm.
my bosses at the time in Florida, and I was like, "Hey, I've got a pretty big opportunity. I just want to understand how it's going to work." I was a 1099 for that company, so I wasn't an actual employee.
Hmm.
So they were like, "Oh, well, we're not going to do that deal because we pay you on equipment margin, Brian, and that's pretty much
Hmm.
all labor and cable." And I was like, "Okay,
Hmm.
that it doesn't really like make sense to me, but okay." And I went to
Hmm.
Purdue, and I called another one of our friends that went to Purdue, and I asked him, I was like, "Do you know anyone that can do this job?" And he goes, "Yeah, I can find someone for you." And he
Hmm.
literally did. And that is the power of network. He told me, "Hey, if you get that deal signed, I'll send you $25,000 the next day." I did, and he did.
Hmm.
And from that moment, how quickly he sent me that money told me that there was a substantial amount of margin in that deal. And so I said, "Hey,
Wow.
I need to figure out this business." And that,
Hmm.
my friend, is where the business started.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact of the matter is you saw opportunity and you were like, okay, this is something that you can't just say no to,
Correct.
right? So someone is coming to you and asking for like they have a pain they're trying to solve. Someone who has an entrepreneurial mind can see that there is a need that I need to
Correct.
fill, and either you can just brush it off and walk away and say, "Ah, that's outside of our core competency and we don't want to deal with it," or "Hey, this is a business opportunity. Maybe there's enough people asking for something here that there's some business to be had here."
100%. There's a need, just like you said. There's a need
Hmm.
that has to be filled by someone. And if your client already has the trust in you from you proving that
Hmm.
you will deliver, so then it just comes down to figuring out how to deliver.
Hmm. Most certainly. So obviously, building a company, you had from the very get go of you starting, you had people asking you for service and getting started. What are some lessons you learned in the process of building this company? What were some of the challenges you
So
faced?
it's a blessing for me. It started off very easy. So business was very
Hmm.
easy when it was just me doing. And then,
Hmm.
as you know, as the business gets larger, you need to have other people. And so the lessons that I would learn is truly understanding leverage at the beginning, but also
Hmm.
understanding planning at the beginning. So understanding what people you need, but
Hmm.
also what those roles and responsibilities are going to be, because they have to be communicated clearly to those people that are going to do the jobs. A
Hmm.
lot of times with us as entrepreneurs, we're Swiss Army knives. We're very
Hmm.
good at figuring out problems on the fly. We're very good with operating within chaos,
Hmm.
but we are the 1%. And so the 99%, they are not great in operating in chaos. They are not great in figuring things out. And they actually, it gives them anxiety. Whereas I think it makes us excited. Like it gives us a sense of excitement to be like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I got to figure out how to do that." And that was like a huge problem for me because I'm like, I figured it out. Like, why? Like, you're smart. You have a
Hmm.
degree. I left school early. Why can't you figure it out?
Hmm.
I've had those people. I mean, you have a master's. Why can't you figure this out? But that is the biggest thing is really the book Measure What Matters. It's a great book in which he talks about a lot of people say that your people are the most important thing in your business, but it's really the right people. And so having an understanding what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit an important part, right? Like your team can either make you or break you,
100%.
right? So if you don't have the right people, pretty much any business book you talk about, they talk about the importance of having the right type of team members that surround you. They always say hire people smarter than you,
Right.
because if you always have to be the one to teach and train them and coach them, and you're always going to be the bottleneck as the team grows. So that's an important lesson that you mentioned. So essentially, obviously you've kind of learned some of the key principles from having built a company. Like, hey, I need to have the right people, right team members. What other life lessons you've learned from a business perspective in terms of growing that
Yes,
company?
yes. So again, a lot of things, and I don't know if it's an innate thing or if other entrepreneurs have this, is really just having relationship capital and valuing that and knowing what that means to be able to call someone that's in your circle that can just give you a rundown of what that piece of the path that you're on in that current
Mm-hmm.
time, what that looks like. Because in entrepreneurship, there's lots of business books. I've had many conversations with friends with MBAs and things like that. There's theory and then there's practical knowledge. So you really want to be
Mm-hmm.
dealing with people who've been in the dirt and who've done it. And so those
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that one of the things that I've learned is you really want to take information in from people who have done it. You can listen to
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have data. There's a lot of data points, but
Mm-hmm.
the people who have actually done the work can probably shortcut you to getting to your path.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like they can apply some of the learnings and get you to skip steps that you couldn't have
That's exactly right.
otherwise because of their learning curve. So obviously, you and I met at a conference. It was a marketing conference. So you clearly have, in the years of you running the business, so many changes happen in a sales and marketing space. You're actually, I want to certainly get into how you are training inner city people with sales, marketing, and technology. So what has, in your observation, changed in the sales and marketing industries in the last 9 or 10 years you've been running this company?
So what's changed for me is it's come full circle to where I am. I'm part of. We were at Funnel Hacking Live, which is great. One
Mm-hmm.
of my good friends, Pablo, told me about it a few years ago, but I wasn't able to go to Funnel Hacking
Mm-hmm.
Live. But I had been kind of looking through the content of Russell and listening to
Mm-hmm.
those learnings, and I'm a huge fan of Alex Hormozy. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing is the old school way of doing business and really the new empathetic way of doing business. And that is why I think attention has become so important and your network of people has become so important. It's why I think a
Mm-hmm.
company like Yelp and all of these social platforms have taken off. You think
Mm-hmm.
of the platform, I don't think it's doing very good anymore, but a place like Clubhouse, these
Mm-hmm.
things are people on stages because other people want to know. They want to have an understanding of things. And so if you're doing business and you are what I call Howard Behar is a mentor, if you have a servant leadership heart, if you're
Mm-hmm.
leading with that first, how can I help? How can I be of service? That resonates with clients. Whereas years
Mm-hmm.
ago, I think for whatever reason, people were apprehensive to that feeling. Now people want that.
Mm-hmm.
They would go to that as opposed to that person like, what are you trying to get out of me by being nice? Now they want that
Mm-hmm.
person that actually is like, how about we just pause? How about I not sell you anything right now? And let's really figure out what your needs are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they say the same thing about leadership as
Hmm.
well, right? They say it's not about just showing a very strong personality and appearing as if you have it all under control, but actually being very empathetic and actually being very vulnerable about your weaknesses and your setbacks. And people are more likely to follow you as a leader when you're much more open and honest with your followers or the people that you're leading. Same thing is true in the sales process as well. Like people know they can smell you from far away when you're a snake oil
Mission
salesperson and
breath.
you're just there for the commission. Yeah, exactly. They can tell. So obviously that's an important lesson. So were there other sales and marketing lessons you've learned over the years in terms of what has worked for you in getting customers, apart from being very empathetic in how you approach your customers?
Yeah, so I've always been a knowledge based seller. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel the more you understand whatever it is, the product that you're selling, the more you have a baseline or
Mm-hmm.
first principle understanding of that product, the easier it is for you to convey that thing in an elementary fashion to your prospect.
Mm-hmm.
And what I feel is a lot of people, they learn how to sell a product, but they don't really truly understand that product.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been the biggest thing, and that was a blessing because as I started my business, I was hiring contractors, and I didn't know how to program a phone system, and so the
Mm-hmm.
guys would tell me, "Oh, it takes this long," and I would have to take it as, "Okay, it must take that long." At one point, a guy
Mm-hmm.
saw a guy program it. I was looking at the screen, and I'm like, "Huh, that doesn't look that hard." And from that point on, I was like, okay, I think that's the thing to do is really understand it. So I learned how to program phone systems, learned how to program switches, routers, all of those things, not so I could do it, but so you could have an understanding of it. And so in every single
Mm-hmm.
thing, as a salesperson, I want to have our salespeople go on a job. I want them to see what it looks like to do the thing because then
Mm-hmm.
they can have a true feeling of what that customer is going to feel when things don't go optimally. So when it makes them not want to promise, oh yeah, everything's going to be perfect. We're going to do. Well, we don't really live in a perfect world. So those are the things. A quick story. One of my clients, Woods Ace Hardware in Torrance,
Mm-hmm.
they had an experience with either Verizon or Frontier, I don't know, where they had sold them a phone system. They'd asked a question, and then the guy, whoever it was like, yeah, for sure it'll do it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you've ever dealt with one of these larger companies, they're quick to sell you. Then when they tried to implement it, didn't work. Fast forward,
Mm-hmm.
we come in and they're asking the same questions to me, can it work? And I was like, honestly, I have no idea. And
Mm-hmm.
the dad, who is the owner, he's like, what do you mean you have no idea? I was like, I don't know. I've done this for a while, but it's a question that I haven't been asked. So I don't know. I mean, I have engineers, I have people where I can figure out the answer to that question, but I would rather tell you I don't know than go figure it out than to just say yes and it be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I like the way you do business. I was like, I'm from the
Mm-hmm.
Midwest. We kind of like we dig the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So from then that customer has been a great customer, and that's the way we built our business. So we started off with just phones with them and have grown in every way with our security products, with our voice over IP products. They do everything with us because they trust that we have their best interests, which is the way that we do business.
Yeah, we're all familiar with salespeople who've promised us the world and not deliver. So nothing foreign there. Actually, out of college, I worked at Coca-Cola for a few years. I worked in their finance department. But even though I was brought in to work in finance, part of the onboarding process is actually going on on the road with
Oh,
the
that's awesome.
truckers. You have to spend an entire day just seeing the life of a trucker. You had to work in the production department for a day just to learn how the production operates. Then you have to work in the logistics department. So they will send us on these sort of kind of day in the life of different team
Mm-hmm.
members just to give you a taste of how the operation works. But I think it also gives you a perspective on, expectation from other departments when you make promise on, certain things, right? Even though we were in finance, we had nothing to do with, what the driver might be doing in the field tomorrow, but they also wanted us to know like what it takes to actually make a delivery, especially in the city of Chicago. You can't maneuver trucks and you have to do all kinds of magic to just get a pallet out of their truck and do those
Yes.
things. And you watch it and you're like, wow, these people. And you also appreciate your job a lot better when you sit down and do it on the computer, right? So because you're like,
100%. I love it. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have it.
Yeah.
It's a completely different things. So obviously, you've been in the business world for long enough. You've had, a very unique upbringing, and you bring a lot of that into your leadership and your management style. Can you elaborate a little bit on kind of what your leadership and
I
management style
can. I
is?
can. Everything that I am, everything that I have learned has been built upon from my beginnings, and my beginnings are from my parents. My mother and
Mm-hmm.
father started a business, Murdock and Sons Construction. So my father was an entrepreneur. My mother was the accountant. She was finance. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned from them. My mother was the one who was super empathetic, like I said earlier. And my dad was a driver, 100%. And so I've always said those two things have really built upon not only can you do anything, can you create anything, but if you can bring people together for a common cause, you can create massive change. And so
Mm-hmm.
that has been my leadership style. And again, it has grown. When I first stepped out, what I did was what they call paper contracting. So I didn't have a lot of employees. It was me, and I just
Mm-hmm.
dealt with subcontractors. And how we delivered our product was how we delivered our product.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you get an understanding of consistency, once you get an understanding of employees, and you get these understandings of all of these things, also knowing the type of product or project that you want to take on and the type of projects that you don't want to take on.
Mm-hmm.
These are lessons of small businesses as they grow to enterprise businesses. So a lot of people, they can't conceptualize why small businesses are the way they are. It's because the ownership does not either want to change or doesn't know the things to change the way that that business operates to make it scale. And so those
Mm-hmm.
are the lessons that I learned as a leader. And it's just being blessed with having like amazing, I tell people it's grace. A lot of people call it the universe. I call it God. I've had amazing people placed in my life who have helped me. I literally met Howard Behar by listening to Ed Millett's podcast. Howard Behar left his
Mm-hmm.
phone number on it, and I don't know how many people call him, but I called him. He called me back, and I kept calling like to talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he would talk to me. I met Jim Robinson, who used to own Subaru North America, and he would talk to me about
Mm-hmm.
business and talk to me about life. Like having these people that you can learn from is priceless. Honestly, it's priceless. And then
Mm-hmm.
having like younger people like a Patrick Bet David who understands frameworks and can communicate those frameworks in a way that we can process and then implement into our business. Like those are the blessings that
Mm-hmm.
I have on top of having an amazing mother and father to start with.
Yeah, most certainly. I think we're living in a time where we have so much more access to information and insights that people probably 20 years ago or even less than that, 10 years ago didn't have, right? I mean, even you're talking about Patrick Bet David and someone I follow, and Ed Milet is another guy that I follow. Both of them have really amazing business content
Hmm.
and plenty of insights, and obviously interviewing people that have exceptional businesses, right? And an amazing record of success
Correct.
stories to share. And I think the access to that information is amazing. And obviously, you and I met at the conference as well. So I'm curious, what other things are you doing apart from listening to these podcasts and reading books? Are there any sort of coaches or consultants that you work with to continue to hone in your skills and to improve in areas where you don't have the proper skills and
Yeah,
training?
so it's really, I like I said, I've been blessed. So I'm on a constant search just to gain the information that I don't have, because a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have a vision of creating 10,000 all world millionaires in the next 10 years. And so to do that,
Mm-hmm.
the business has to be substantially larger. And so there are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things that I needed. So I searched out in my mind of this is what I need. And I was blessed to find actually my new CFO, COO is she lives in Chicago part
Mm-hmm.
time. She was
Mm-hmm.
with Berkshire Hathaway and came on, and she's helping me on the finance piece because she has taken very large companies. She's worked for AT&T, worked for an Aon, worked for Berkshire Hathaway, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to see those things. Like I may, these are the things I can see where I want to go in my mind, but I haven't
Mm-hmm.
physically been there before. So having those people who have been there
Mm-hmm.
to tell you the things
Yeah.
like you talk about, who've already walked the walk, so they can tell you, hey, these are some of the things that we ran into. So again, to
Mm-hmm.
shortcut your path.
Yeah. So you mentioned a big aspirational goal there. You said you want to get help 10,000 people to become
Correct.
millionaires. So tell me a little bit about what sort of does that look like, that dream, when it's a
Yeah,
reality?
so that dream is based upon it's based upon America. It's based upon where we are
Mm-hmm.
at this time currently for everyone. I wear this shirt proudly. It says Patriot. I love
Mm-hmm.
America. I love everything that America offers because you can go from nothing to something very quickly. I moved to
Mm-hmm.
LA with $300. So with $300 in a dream, and my dream transitioned
Mm-hmm.
to another dream and turned it into a multi-million dollar business. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's helping other people see that their current state does not dictate their future state.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only thing that really determines that is what you can see in your mind, what you decide that you're going to do, and what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. And so
Mm-hmm.
as most people who are paying attention can see, the middle class in America has shrunk. We don't have the manufacturing jobs that we used to have. We don't have a lot of the business that we had because it's gone overseas, it's gone to the South, it's gone to Canada. So what we want to do, as you talked about earlier, we talked about AI, we talked about a lot of these technical positions that are still, they're going to be very highly needed. A lot of people now are doing prompt engineering for AI and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing in the inner city is creating training programs to go into the inner city to identify these youth who have the precondition to be good at tech,
Mm-hmm.
to understand how to communicate, to have those great interpersonal communication skills, who traditionally may not have known that they could use that to make six figures. And if you and I both
Mm-hmm.
understand that, if you can make six figures and you understand investing, compounding math, compounding effort, compounding everything, that gets you there. So the goal,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, is 10,000 in 10 years. That is the goal, 10,000 millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be able to teach them how to fish, but we also want to be able to teach them how to invest in themselves and
Mm-hmm.
invest to grow the wealth and the money that they create, to take care of not
Mm-hmm.
only themselves, but their families and their communities. The goal is for us to build back the middle class in America.
I really admire that big vision and dream that you have. And I think, like you said, with God's help, anything is possible.
100%.
But it's certainly not an easy task. And certainly America need more visionary entrepreneurs who is able to take that challenge, because I don't think you can leave this to government to figure out, right? That's the biggest challenge. And most often people think government is the one that can be the savior. Like you said, you can, like you said, if you can take responsibility for what you want the future to be and take action on whatever the right steps to get you to that dream, anything is possible, right? So it's an aspirational
Thank you.
goal. Certainly, we can spend a lot of time there, but I'm curious to learn a little bit about kind of your decision making framework. How do you go about making very important decisions? Obviously, this big aspirational goal you have, right? It could be very humongous of a
Mhm.
dream that it can paralyze you, right? How do you go about making decisions on, well, what steps do I need to take to get me to that next step in
That's
my
a
goal?
great question, because what happens to a lot of, just like you said, is you get paralyzed because it feels like a daunting task.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, no matter how large the goal is, you have to break it down into steps. You have to break it down into, okay, what do I need to do to just move the ball 5 yards, 10
Mm-hmm.
yards? And you just keep moving the ball 5 yards, 10 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards. The reality is, I had plans of doing this program last year, and I was frozen. There were a lot of business
Mm-hmm.
things that happened and just a lot of things that paralyzed me. And so I speak on things from my personal experiences. I never want to tell people, oh, you should do this from a high horse of telling you you should do it. No, I tell you what, I
Mm-hmm.
know that worked for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
I knew that, hey, I truly believe that our program can change America, which will change the world. And so when you look at
Mm-hmm.
that, it was like a lot on my mind. It's like, wow, this is big, Brian. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
do you do this? Nothing. And it just was one step. And I I thought about one person. That one person I reached out to, she was a doctor as well, and just a genius person, Dr. Taisha Noyes. I told her my vision. I was like, I don't know how to build a curriculum, but I'm pretty sure that this needs a
Mm-hmm.
curriculum. She's like, I love your vision. I want to help. And she built it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you find
Mm-hmm.
another person that, hey, I'm great at sales, but I don't know how good I am at selling, at teaching sales. And so
Mm-hmm.
you find another person. That person is Jane Doxey. She goes, you know what? I know how to do it. I've done it before. I want to do that. I want to be part of that. And you just step by step by step, you put all of the pieces
Mm-hmm.
together. And if you don't deviate from your plan, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
big thing of this world, this 3D thing that we live in, is there are always distractions coming at all times. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't deviate from your plan will happen. The only thing that can
Mm-hmm.
stop your plan from not happening is you quitting. And this is, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
for everyone. The kids that I sit with, I tell them, whatever it is that you want, you can have it. You just have to do the work, and you just have to see yourself actually having it. So I've actually
Mm-hmm.
seen it. I've seen us at $10 billion. I've seen the things that I talk about. And so now it's on me to live in faith and not in fear, and to constantly
Mm-hmm.
work through doing the right things, making the right decisions, having discernment. My mom was very big on discernment, having the discernment of understanding that some people are going to be in your life for all the seasons, and some people are only going to be in your life for a season, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Some great wisdom there. So obviously when you talked about like, moving the ball forward, staying proactive and, making things happen on on a regular basis, right? And then really focused on, doing something, make the vision a reality. So can you talk a little bit about some of the productivity hacks you have? Obviously you're running a business, you have this big vision, creating this educational curriculum and trying to figure out how you get 10,000 people to consume the content, implement that strategy, become millionaires, right? And really fulfilling that American
Yep.
dream. So, is there some sort of a productivity hack that you have in terms of how you get your business stuff done and this vision a reality? And obviously, you also have to take care of your family and personal needs and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
man.
that. So, what
I'm
what sort of
married
things do you do?
with three beautiful children, so yes, they're all of those things. It's being intentional with your time and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that it's okay. I was just with a friend, and it's okay if one day you got three, four, five kids, however many kids that you have. If you're like, man, I feel like I can only give my one son 30, 45 minutes. Well, that's okay as long as
Mm-hmm.
that 30, 45 minutes are actually devoted to that son,
Mm-hmm.
not half looking at your phone and just kind of hanging out. And so when I play with my daughter, I'm playing with my daughter. When I'm with my sons
Mm-hmm.
or the weekend playing football with them or coaching them, like I'm all in with them. And so those are the things. I was introduced to meditation 2 years ago, and it has
Mm-hmm.
been a game changer for my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'd already been doing cold showers before. A friend introduced that to
Mm-hmm.
me at the time. Since cold showers, I've now cold plunged. So I cold plunge almost every
Mm-hmm.
day, and that's another one. And I think a lot of people, we live in comfort, in a place of we want to be in comfort. I believe that God rewards us for doing hard things, and so
Mm-hmm.
when you do that, as life things that come at you, typically it's going to feel overwhelming. But if you've dunked
Mm-hmm.
yourself in 40-degree water,
Mm-hmm.
and you've breathed through that for a couple minutes, when those things come at you, you say, you know what? It's not that bad. And so you
Mm-hmm.
understand, and from that point, from a calm space of decision making, you make that decision and then you live with the decision. And understand, like obviously, Samuel, none of us are perfect. And so mistakes are going to happen. But living in a place of
Mm-hmm.
calm, of knowing that if that mistake happens, then I will have to take the steps to come back from that mistake. And as long
Mm-hmm.
as, again, as long as we don't die, we continue. God never
Mm-hmm.
gives us
Well,
anything
sir,
more than we can handle.
that's
Yeah.
so true. So obviously, Brian, you've been through a lot, and you have a lot of life lessons, and it has shaped the way you lead your company, to shape the way you envision the future, right? Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give the younger Brian?
What would I give the younger Brian?
Yeah, as an advice.
Don't be fearful of asking for help. Those are the things that people, I guess, I see a lot of my friends here in LA that are starting businesses from nothing, they'll go raise, it's amazing to me. They'll go raise $4 or $5 million with an idea on a piece of paper. And for a long time, I'm running a $5-6 million company that's actually doing stuff. And I was fearful of going out to go and get investors. And so you can't be fearful of that. But I think that is a cultural thing where we want to do it ourselves. You want to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap. There's something to be said with that, but there's also something to be said with, hey, you can go further faster with help. And that's the leverage thing. And so if you have a plan prior to going to get money and then just burning the money up, doesn't make any sense. But if you have a plan and you put that plan into place, and that plan dictates that you need a certain amount of capital to go out and get the right people, because the right people are going to cost more than just bodies. And those are the things that you learn as well. Just bodies and the right people, there's a cost difference in those two. So that's what I would tell him. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well, what a great note to end our conversation. Brian, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for sharing your life lesson and experience with our
Thank you
audience.
very much for having me. And hopefully someone can distill something out of this and put it into action.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by OneIMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.